Now, this is not from just anybody. This has come from someone within the IRS. And you know, people still every once in a while come and ask me, Paymon, you know, who's this guy named Joe Bannister? You know, is he a plant? You know, is he trying to infiltrate the movement, or what's the idea here? You know, I mean, is he for real? Well, before I bring him up, I can just tell you a little bit of a background so you get to see how real I think he is. He had called, the way he got into all this was on listening on radio on Jeff Metcalf in the Bay Area. He heard TV Kid talk about the Federal Reserve System, talk about the IRS and a lot losing of our rights. He ordered her book called Blind Loyalty and read it and was befuddled. Kept thinking about it. Eventually, he decided to call and investigate TV Kid's allegations in her book, Blind Loyalty. So he figured, what the heck, let's call this guy in here who claims that filing of income tax returns is voluntary, named Bill Conklin. Expecting to get a number that's disconnected because the letter of Bill that was actually reprinted in there was several years old. Sure enough, he got Bill Conklin on the line, and they had a conversation because Conklin calls me and says, Paymon, guess what? I said, what? I just got the most incredible call I ever had. I got a call from an IRS special agent. He said, well, Bill, do you think it's for real? Is he joking or what? I said, well, sounds real to me. Well, but I told him to call you and call also Sean and Steve at Free Enterprise Society also. So, okay. He called me, sure enough, we talk, and I'm thinking, sounds real to me. You know, I mean, I deal with a lot of people. I took a lot of courses in human relations and people reading and body language and face language and voice recognition, all these things. I mean, everything was in sync. This guy was really just honestly curious just to know. So we started a process of educating Mr. Bannister about the income tax from scratch. Because being a CPA, with several years with a famous large accounting firm, taught him nothing about real tax law. He just knew accounting, basically there. Being a criminal investigative division special agent with the IRS, really didn't teach him a whole lot about the fundamentals of the income tax. He knew nothing about those things. He just knew how to enforce those few things that he was taught. So he read Bill Conklin's book, Why No One Is Required to File Tax Returns and What You Can Do About It, which you can download for free, any of you, at www.anti-irs.com. You can purchase them here. We have the books available for $20 if you prefer it on paper. He became a student of Freedom Law School, took our Level 1 course by correspondence on audio tape, took our Level 2 course. He took some material from Free Enterprise Society, their income tax basics material. And we put him in touch with Bill Benson. And Mr. Benson took a lot of time and educated Mr. Bannister and actually sent him actual certified copies of documents he had to let Mr. Bannister know that what he was showing is for real, not made up photocopies. And I was the one that realized that, hey, and I think everybody realized that we had an incredible opportunity with Mr. Bannister to really help out the American people free themselves of the IRS, but I took the extra time to call Joe on a regular basis, see how he's doing. You know, how do you like? Any questions? You know, how things go with Benson, how things go with going with Conklin, with, you know, Free Enterprise Society, blah, blah, blah. When he was in town, you know, I had a chance to meet with him. I went and actually physically met him in a restaurant, so we got to know what this guy looks like, because, you know, none of you know who to look for. You know, somebody had to know who he is, right? And Joe at first was not sure about us. He was just checking us out. But then he found himself in a very moral perspective. See, when you came in the freedom movement and someone told you filing of income tax is voluntary, a tax return, you thought, yeah, right. If it's voluntary, how come everybody's volunteering, right? Did all you do that? Sometime or another, raise your hand if you did, please. Okay, and the rest of you should be raising your hands. You did. You thought, come on. But he had an extra problem because he was enforcing the very laws that now he was discovering they had no authority under law for him to enforce. In other words, if he knew that what he was doing was no authority in the law to do it and was therefore illegal, he was an outlaw. And the people who he was working for were an outlaw group of people who took over a legal entity called the Internal Revenue Service of the U.S. government. And he had a moral duty to do what he could about it. So we told Joe, well, tell you what, Joe, I don't know what you want to do. You want to quit, or you let him fire you, or fight him, or what, but we'll have a freedom rally down here in March. Why don't you just schedule that? Just that day. Just give me that one weekend. How's that? I'll just, because we knew this was like about over a year that he educated himself about this stuff and had started writing his book a while back, by the way. He started writing his book. And he said, okay, I can do that. I can come. Sure, I can talk, hey, even if I'm working for the IRS, I can have a right to free speech. I'll probably have some restrictions on what can and cannot say because I'm still working for them. But, I'll do what I can, tell the truth, sure. Well, as things turn out, the path for him was to leave the outlaw agency. Why? Because Joe had written a report, a 90-page report, called Investigating the Federal Income Tax. And he presented that to his superiors in San Jose, where he works, and said, I want you guys to take this to the IRS to the top all the way, and I want you to have them refute this point by point. I'm saying income tax is voluntary, I'm concluding here. I'm concluding the 16th Amendment never gave Congress any new taxing power, but even if it did, it was never passed properly anyhow. And also, the government is really funded by borrowing money from the Federal Reserve banks, who create money out of thin air. And now, so with that, you know what the IRS did in response? You think they took the lawyers that they had, all these good lawyers, that said, okay, no problem, you're wrong. You think they gave him a copy of the Congressional Research Service report by Mr. John R. Lucky called the Lucky Report? Some of you heard about? Here, look, Mr. Lucky answered you. No. They didn't answer nothing. And you know why? You know the answer why. It's obvious. Because they could not refute what he was saying. So what they did, just gave him a memo and said, you got 1 week of administrative leave, and you figure out what you want to do at the end of the week. Well, Joe had told them that, look, I want you to refute this point by point, otherwise I'm resigning. Because if they're not refuting what he's saying, that income tax is voluntary, if he's not, so now he found out, they're verifying that he was being an outlaw, and the agency's an outlaw, he would want to leave that outlaw agency and quit doing what he's doing ASAP. Wouldn't you feel that moral responsibility to quit doing the wrong thing, right? I mean, I would. Why would I want to continue doing so? Well, some of us argued with him that said, oh, stay longer, Joe. Give him hell. Make him fire you or something. But, well, he did what was very consistent with Joseph Bannister that I've grown to know. And that was a very moral, conscientious person. You see, that's what it took for someone who is, you can imagine, brainwashed by all the propaganda and training of the of the IRS and the federal government about the income tax, to even have an open mind of an inkling, to even look at this information. To do not just outright dismiss it and say, I'm not going to look at it at all, but actually listen, actually investigate. And because of that, on the 25th of February of 1999, thank you, I was stand corrected, on his own birthday, on the date of the alleged non-ratification of the 16th Amendment, a day before his 6 days were up, Mr. Bannister decided to quit the IRS so he can come out here and tell you folks the truth about the income tax and give you guys the book, Investigating the Federal Income Tax. And you are the very first audience in America to meet Mr. Bannister, and the very first group of people in America to get the copy of his first edition of Investigating the Federal Income Tax. I know you're eager to hear from him, and we're going to go over time through the program today. I can tell you that, so you can, count that in. But help me give a warm hand of welcome to the newest freedom fighter in America, Mr. Joseph R. Bannister.
Hey, man. How much time do I have left? 5 minutes? No, seriously, how much time do I have?
We're not going anywhere.
Well, I'm very nervous. I've spoken to groups of 20 or 30 or maybe even 50 IRS agents. I'm really nervous. I got tape recorders on me. I got video cameras. Anything I say can and will be used against me in a court of law. So I'm sure you can understand that I don't have to be as careful as I was when I carried a gun and a badge, but you're just gonna have to bear with me, and I'm gonna take it right up to the line. I was joking with some of my newfound friends that when I worked for the IRS, I knew I had a target on my back. And I had no idea how much that target would grow. I thought working for the IRS, you couldn't have a bigger target on your back. And then I found out about this stuff. But anyway, also, I went through 16 weeks of law enforcement training at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Glencoe, Georgia. And I was elected president of the first 8-week class, and then re-elected president the second 8 weeks. We had to choose a T-shirt for the class, and the one that we liked best was it's a picture of your standard federal agent wearing the fedora and the dark glasses and got the Sig Sauer 9mm, and it says, "I'm your worst nightmare, an accountant with a gun." And I was the president, so I got to choose what the message would be, and I never knew I'd be showing it on a stage like this. You'll forgive me here, I'm going to kind of try to get my notes together a little bit. Okay, how many of you were a little skeptical about me? I don't blame you, because I was more than a little skeptical about you. And I think, I don't want to take a lot of time on this particular issue, but I think part of the problem in our country today is that the government doesn't trust the people, and the people don't trust the government. Well, even as a badge-carrying federal agent, I never trusted the government. Believe it or not, I still felt I could serve. But that's another story. Paymon did a great job of telling you my whole speech, so I'm just kidding, Paymon. I'll just briefly go over where I came from and hopefully build some credibility with you. I graduated in '86 from San Jose State University with a degree in accounting. I worked at a small CPA firm upon graduation, and then I spent 3 years at KPMG Pete Marwick, which at the time was the largest accounting firm in the world. I spent 2 years in their tax department working on international tax, corporate tax returns, partnerships, you name it. Then I left Pete Marwick and went into the venture capital industry, and spent a little under 2 years there. But while I was in the venture capital industry, I got this itch, and the itch was to get into law enforcement. I have a lot of relatives that are in law enforcement, and I had just recently, this would be like 1991 time frame, I had just recently earned my CPA certificate, and I can't think of two more opposed, wants to carry a gun and a badge, but he's a bean counter. I don't know, tear me apart. I was in conflict with myself. But anyway, I decided, well, I got to look for a law enforcement agency that will actually want to hire a CPA. And I didn't really know about, many of the federal agencies other than the ones we all hear about, FBI, Secret Service. So I applied to the FBI to be a special agent. And they have a little box you can check in the application that says CPA. It's only a 2-page application, so I figured, there aren't that many questions. If they want you to check that box, I felt pretty proud to be able to check it. That I was able to get interviewed really quickly. I passed all the tests. Medical, they check you out head to toe. They checked out relatives all around the country. They checked out things all around the world. They went back and talked to my elementary school teachers. They check you out. The reason they do that is because you're going to be holding, at least what I believe, you're going to be holding a position of public trust. People have to know if they can trust you. Anyway, I went through a long, drawn-out process with the FBI, not because, I passed everything that they threw at me, but the one hurdle that they couldn't overcome was a budget crisis where they had a hiring freeze. And I basically couldn't get my appointment letter. They said, hey, you passed everything, you're ready to go, but we just can't give you that appointment letter because we don't have the budget to hire you. So luckily, as a backup, I had applied to be a special agent in the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. I had some good advice. At the time, I thought it was good advice to apply to more than one agency, because if you put all your eggs in one basket, and they're like the FBI was at the time, their doors are closed, then you're out of luck. So anyway, I spent about 2 years just doing CPA type work and waiting, hoping that the FBI would call me. And that hiring freeze lasted a good long time. But eventually, I think it was August of '93, I got a call from the San Francisco office of the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. Could somebody get me a little glass of water? Okay, that gentleman, thank you. So where was I? Oh, so they called me in August. I went and interviewed. did well in the interview, and they offered me a job. And, you know, the last 2 or 3 years, I had been building myself up to, the, you know, gosh, I'm going to be able to someday, you know, the FBI is paying attention to me. I'm going to carry an FBI badge and be an FBI special agent. And I was really excited about it. And the IRS thing was kind of a, you know, secondary, just in case kind of thing. And, you know, I mean, the FBI, at least in the mainstream, enjoys a, you know, pretty good reputation. At least they did back then, and thank you. So anyway, I had my mind geared towards being an FBI agent, but the FBI wasn't hiring. So I kind of had to gear myself towards thinking about being an IRS agent because they were paying a ton. And I, you know, after researching it more, I found out that, well, they don't have as wide a jurisdiction as the FBI, but they do investigate, you know, income tax violations, Bank Secrecy Act, money laundering. Certainly, just about any crime uses money. People have to launder that money somewhere. So I figured maybe I can get some excitement out of this. The other nice thing was that I didn't have to relocate with the IRS as I would have with the FBI. So I basically reasoned in my mind that it would be a good move to just go with the IRS. So after my background had been completed, November 15th of 1993, I was sworn in as an IRS special agent. One thing that was funny that happened at that point was that I wanted to get right to work. And I was just about to open some files, and my boss came to me and said, "Don't touch that. You haven't been sworn in yet." And you know, I didn't know better. I mean, I realized I was going to have to be sworn in, but I didn't realize that I couldn't touch anything or look at anything until I was sworn in. So I went across the bay to the Oakland CID office, and the chief of, at that time was the San Francisco district, swore me in as an IRS special agent, and I swore an oath to God that I would support and defend the Constitution of the United States from all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I took that oath freely, without mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and I promised that I would well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office I was about to enter. I have that oath on videotape. My family was there. It meant a lot to me. I meant every word that I swore to. I had no idea just how deeply that oath was going to be tested. When I took the job, I really believed that the income tax, the IRS, everything was, you know, I mean, I didn't live under a rock. I knew that the IRS had bad press. They did some stupid things. You know, they stole the little girl's money out of her bank account, even though it was her dad's tax problem, all those kinds of things. I heard all that stuff, but I thought, well, you know, I'm a good guy. I'm friendly. Maybe I can give him a little better name. You know, because at that point, I just really thought that it's just an unpopular tax, but, you know, it's legal, it's necessary, it's your fair share, the whole, you know, everything that we all hear time and time again. And I truly believed it. I would not have taken the job if I knew what I knew today. And I understand that a lot of people, or a certain number of people, may think that, you know, we all huddle around in these little rooms and laugh at you. Some may. I never did. And the people that I actually worked with are good people. They're honorable people. They're hardworking people. But they're uninformed people, as I was. And I don't think, I mean, I realize that everybody wants to point the fingers at the IRS, and they deserve a certain amount of finger pointing. But my view on it is that the the people inside the IRS, I mean, they have their government paychecks and things that they want to protect, and that may affect a certain amount of what they do. But the bottom line is that, like the American public at large, IRS employees are just clueless about the Constitution. They're clueless about the foundations of our country. They're clueless about what's important to our freedom. And when I say clueless, I don't mean to denigrate them in any way. I was the poster child for that, to a certain extent. Although I had some redeeming qualities. I've been an NRA member since 1990. A member of Gun Owners of America. So, you know, basically, and I've got, if you see this binder here, I've got 2 binders this big full of letters that I've written regarding the Second Amendment and how important the right to keep and bear arms is to our freedom. And many of those letters I wrote while I was a special agent. So anyway, I think I'm getting a little off track here. Let's see. I didn't rehearse this, so... Clueless. Isn't there a show called Clueless? Let's see. I guess I was kind of on the subject of the mentality of IRS employees. Again, I'm not just kissing up. I still have a lot of respect for the people that I worked for. I'm going to speak specifically about the Criminal Investigation Division. They are people, and again, I can't, you know, you may all, some of you may have stories about special agents that you've run into, bad seeds. I'm not, those things may very well have happened. I'm just going to talk about the people that I knew. And they're good people. They're very good people. But again, as Paymon said, you know, accounting degree, Big 8, it was Big 8 at the time, Big 8 accounting firm, some of the best federal law enforcement training one could come across. And I never looked or thought there was a need to look at things like a requirement to file an income tax return. I never even dreamed of looking at things like withholding, the requirement to withhold. I never, you know, I knew that the 16th Amendment had something to do with the income tax, but much more than that, I couldn't really tell you a whole lot. And like I say, NRA member, I could probably recite most of the first 10 or 15 amendments. You know, I think I knew the Constitution better than a lot of law enforcement officers did. But I did not know about the very foundations of our taxing system. Well, in 1996, December of 96, I was listening to talk radio, which I know is a very mind-numbing experience, because anybody that listens to talk radio is a kook. Well, I'm not a kook, and now that I've met many of you, I can say on tape that you're not kooks. You're just people that want to be treated with respect, and you want your freedom to be guarded by those of us that carry guns and badges. Anyway, I was listening to the radio, and a lady named Devi Kidd came on. And Devi was talking about some very kooky things. I don't remember exactly what I was doing that day, but I think I was probably driving around in my government car that has the red lights, the siren. They're all hidden, you know, because it's not like a regular police car, but the equipment is there if you need it. Anyway, I was driving around and I was listening to the show, and she was on the Jeff Metcalf show. I don't know how many people have heard of Jeff Metcalf, but he's a Bay Area talk show host, and I'd been listening to him in the past, found him to be very credible, very truthful, very honorable. And so then he has D.V. Kidd on his show. And I said to myself, Jeff, what have you done? Why are you taking, now these are just thoughts in my head, I never said this to Jeff. What are you doing with this reputation and all the things you've worked for? You've increased your audience and you're doing great. And then you got this lady on here that's saying that the income tax is voluntary. 16th Amendment was never ratified, and other sundry kooky claims. Well, lucky for me and lucky for you, Evie was appearing on a show hosted by a host that I trusted. If she was here speaking to you and I was just walking down that hallway out here, I would have looked in, heard what you were talking about, and walked on. But again, lucky for all of us, I was listening to somebody that I trusted, and therefore when I heard what she had to say, I thought, well, I'm an investigator, and a damn good one. I'm going to check into this. And I'm sure none of you have experienced this before, but when you talk about the income tax or the monetary system, like I say, I know you've never experienced this, but I was afraid I might be considered a kook. Now, actually, I wasn't afraid because I've been called names before, and I was not afraid. But what I was afraid of happening was that as I was going to set upon this journey and research this, I didn't want it slowing me down. I didn't want people to try to talk me out of looking into it. I didn't want to deal with all that. I just wanted to find the facts and the evidence and find out what the truth was. So I truly was not afraid of being labeled. I'm not afraid today. But I didn't tell anybody or told very few people at the very beginning. So anyway, I probably ought to speed things up a little bit, otherwise you'll be here all night. So anyway, I ordered DV stuff, and I have to say, special agents in the IRS and actually all federal law enforcement these days, we work 50-hour weeks year-round. It's an average, so I'm not asking you to feel sorry for me. I'm just saying 50 hours out of a given week, I was working. I have a family. I've got the regular fatherly type duties. So it took me a while to be able to pick up this stuff and read it and start to take it all in. And my jaw literally dropped to the ground as I read some of DV's claims. Literally dropped to the ground. And at this point, I'm still thinking about 95% kook, or maybe, 85, somewhere in there. And DV, since I know DV now, I'm sure she won't mind that I'm saying this kook word. It's the only one I can think of, because that seems to be the label du jour. But anyway, it took me a while, because I was doing this after hours, on weekends, no football games, no beers after work. I don't really do that anyway, but every waking moment that I could devote to it without driving my wife totally crazy or ignoring my children, I spent looking into this issue. And as Payman talked about, Devi in her books, as many of you may know, she puts the phone numbers for the people who have the evidence right in the book. And, when I would go to work every day in the Criminal Investigation Division, the phone was the most important tool that I had. So she made things really easy for me. So the first person I decided to call was a man named Bill Conklin, because he claimed that the filing of income tax returns was voluntary, and he also claimed that he had court cases to back up that claim, and he also claimed that he had a $50,000 reward for anyone that could prove him wrong.
Pre-tax 50,000.
You're going to have to trust me on this, I never did this to collect the reward. I don't know, I picked him first. I thought, clearly, this guy is full of it. So he had a press release in Devi's book that was, at that time, I guess about 3 years old. And you have to understand that, we didn't go to daily classes on tax protesters or, kooky right-wing extremists. There's just this specter, isn't there, that's kind of around us all who think this way. So I was expecting, at least in the back of my mind, that I'd call the phone number and it wouldn't even exist. I didn't even think the phone number would work. But I must have thought maybe just a little bit that it might work, because I did call it. And I dialed it, and the phone rang, and a voicemail came on and said, in a very friendly voice, "Hi, this is Bill Conklin." I don't know how many people have called Bill. "Hi, this is Bill Conklin, and I'm happy that you called. Please leave a message." So I left a message that was kind of cryptic. I said, "Bill, my name is Joe Bannister, and you probably going to be surprised at what I do for a living and why I'm calling you, but I basically gave him that little bit of a teaser and said, please call me out, and left my number." Well, he called me back maybe an hour or two later, and I just went into the story. I said, just like I've already gone through with you. DV Kid, Jeff Metcalf, credibility. Okay, now I'm at the Bill Conklin stepping stone. And so far, I haven't had any reason to doubt what I'm reading. I haven't proved any of it, but we're at the Bill Conklin step. Well, Bill, contrary to what I expected, didn't rant and rave. He didn't string together a bunch of weird, kooky arguments that didn't make any sense. Those are things that I expected, but they didn't happen. He was very coherent, very reserved, very well-spoken. How am I doing, Bill? He was a very nice man. Now, this is only over the phone. But I told him who I was, what I did for a living. And I said, I took the day off, and believe it or not, I'm trying to learn the truth here, and I'd like you to help me. And he said he'd love to help me. I don't know, I kind of know what he was thinking in his mind. But I went into the song and dance about how I was doing this on my own time and at my own expense, and surely that when my wife looked at the phone bill and saw all these long distance charges, she was going to think I was up to something strange. So Bill offered to send me $50 to cover my phone expenses. You see, you build your credibility just a little bit at a time. So a few weeks later, or not a week later maybe, I got his book, Why No One Is Required to File Income Tax Returns and What You Can Do About It, and the $50. And so I proceeded to pay my phone bill first, and then I began reading. And went into more detail about all the issues that he had researched, and I saw his listing of, I don't know, 6 plus court cases with Conklin in the heading, and I thought, surely these are all BS. Well, I went to the law library, and I found that each and every one of them were truly filed, decided court cases. I basically, in a nutshell, checked out everything that Bill Conklin said, and I found it to be credible, compelling, and it's an understatement, but food for thought for an IRS special agent off duty. So Bill did another thing. He said, there's somebody that I think you need to talk to. And immediately my antenna went up and I went, uh-oh, I think I've already stepped too far, because, next I'm going to be talking to, king of the tax protesters, or, the grand poobah. So I really was a little fearful, not because, Bill he seemed like a great guy, but, when you literally carry a gun and a badge and you know what the culture is inside the IRS, I can't help but admit that I was a little bit apprehensive about who this person was that was going to call me. But I gave Bill my home phone. Well, he already had my home phone number, so I already let that one go. But he had a man named Paymon call me. And I never, I'd only known maybe 1 or 2 people of Persian or Iranian descent. I wasn't quite sure how to even pronounce his name at that point. Call, and he said, yeah, I mean, he makes those little, yeah, as I'm telling him the whole story, okay. I'm like, okay, where are we going to go with this? So I just went through it, and I was really honest with everybody. I said, look, I'm trying to get to the truth here, and I don't have any axe to grind. I just want to find out the truth. So Paymon promised that he'd send me some other things. I told him, look, I'm going to check out everything you send me. I'm not going to take anything for granted. And, he sent me stuff, continued to read Bill Conklin's stuff, and continued to research and read every chance that I got. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. So at some point, I went back to D.V. Kidd's books, and I thought, okay, I've really opened Pandora's box here. There's got to be some other juicy tidbits in this book, some other phone numbers. So I found a phone number for a guy named Bill Benson. And Bill Benson, the grand poobah. So I can't remember. I think I had somebody, I don't know if Bill can tell me, I had somebody call Bill Benson ahead of time, because, I did Bill Conklin first, cold call, and he took my call, and we made progress. But with Bill Benson, I thought, gosh, if I just call this guy and give him the old IRS CID special agent song and dance, I just don't think it's going to cut it, even though it cut it with Bill Conklin. So I believe I asked somebody to introduce myself, or introduce me to him, saying, this guy's going to be calling you. And you'd have to ask Bill more about that and what was going through his mind. But at some point, I dialed the number for Bill back there in near Chicago. And I went through the whole song and dance that I went through with Bill Conklin and Paymon. Believe it or not, I'm just an honest IRS special agent. And I guess I I couldn't understand why there was always this silence on the other end. I've learned more about why there's that silence now, but anyway, I talked to Bill and I said, I'd like to find out more about what you have to say and what your evidence is. And again, criminal investigator, facts and evidence. I mean, that's the name of my game. Just call me Jack Friday. Joe Friday. Joe's a hard name for me to remember. So anyway, I gave Bill the whole song and dance, and I said, I'm just really trying to find out the truth here. The things I've heard is like, I don't know, the governor of Ohio was out of the state on the day it was ratified, or those kinds of arguments. Never looked into it. Well, Bill said something quite bold, as far as I was concerned. He said that not a single state in the Union ratified the 16th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. And I thought, well, who the hell do you think you are? I said, wow, this guy's going for, every state. And, I don't think I've really said it explicitly, but in the back of my mind, I wouldn't call it an arrogance. I would just call it a confidence that at some point along the way, I was going to find, the smoking gun and find that I could go back to my regular life and be done with this little investigation that I was doing. Well, Bill kindly sent me a copy of The Law That Never Was. And like the little gesture that Bill Conklin did, I think I might have told Bill Benson what gesture Conklin did, so maybe he thought, well, I'm going to do one better than Conklin. But Bill gave me, and this, I guess I didn't ask for it explicitly, but he could tell that when he was an investigator himself. You want to see the documents. You don't want to talk to the witness over the phone. You want to look in their eyes. You want to look at the bank statements. You want to look at the receipts. You want to look at the proof. So Bill decided to send me a copy, I guess, is it one of 2 certified copies from the state of Kentucky, in which the vote, contrary to what was reported back in Washington, D.C., was, I believe it was 22 opposed, 9 in favor. So I thought if there was one document that Bill could send me, he certainly sent me the smoking gun, or the critical piece of the case, and it certainly is an official document. And I think that, I thanked Bill over the phone about this, but I think that that was a neat gesture, because Bill never looked in my eyes. Bill, as I found out later, had every reason to mistrust me. Every reason. And he sent me one of 2 copies of one of the most important pieces of evidence that he had. Well, sending that meant a lot to me, as did reading The Law That Never Was. It was interesting because on the cover, on a little piece of paper with this Kentucky document, Bill said something to the effect, "This is for all those doubting Thomases." And how true that was. I was able to show it to different, people in the small circle of people that I had shown, and it's definitely official. It's the real thing. So anyway, over a period of months, I continued to be on the phone with Bill Benson and Bill Conklin and Paymon. And, all this is happening on my own time after hours, just my little project. Well, I'd basically gone through Bill Conklin, the Grand Poobah, Bill Benson. Next I thought, well, you know, somebody that I'd like to talk to is Devi Kidd herself. But I just know that Devi is not going to take a call from me without a prior introduction. And she may have, she's a very nice lady, but I thought I need an intro. And I believe I asked Bill Benson to make that introduction for me so that when she called, she wouldn't have a heart attack. I was quite used to giving people heart attacks when I worked for the Criminal Investigation Division. It wasn't intentional. I usually would try to say U.S. Treasury Department instead of IRS Criminal Investigation Division, just to save people the stress. Anyway, talked to Devi Kidd. How am I doing on time? Talked to Devi Kidd, told her my story. I said, Devi, you know, you opened my eyes to some really staggering information. It's shaken my belief system to its very foundations. And I made a promise to her, and I don't remember if it was explicitly or implicitly, I made a promise to Bill Conklin and Bill Benson and Paymon. And I don't regret that promise, but at the time, I guess I wonder why I was so sure of myself. But I said, I'm going to learn the truth about these things, and I'm going to talk about it. And if I find out that these so-called tax protester arguments are fraudulent, are false, misleading, I'm going to talk about that. But if I find out that they're true, that they aren't misleading, that it's not a bunch of gobbledygook strung together, as the IRS told me that it was, I was going to talk about that too. But believe me, I had no idea when I said that I'd talk about it that it would turn into where I am today. But I guess when you make a promise to yourself and a promise to others, it's a promise you have to keep. And I'm glad I did. So anyway, I think that those are basically the people that I talk to. I've talked to them on a recurring basis. Lucky for you, lucky for all of us, I guess. They treated me kindly. They gave me every piece of information that I asked for, often for free. They believed me when I said, look, you know, I don't have a lot of money to do this, but I hate to have it not be done just because, you know, I can't do it. So anyway, they helped me along, and I checked out every single thing because I knew that what I was learning was something that I'd have to back up. So obviously, by this time in my life, I'm still going to work every day. Got my 6-hour 9mm, my badge. Working some very exciting cases. I don't know if you know, but Treasury agents outside of the Secret Service, when there's a presidential election or other need for protection details, will take from the other Treasury agencies and use them for Secret Service assignments. So I was really looking forward to, I'm trying to think, was it 90? When did Kemp and Dole run? Was that 96? I got to be on a team that was guarding Jack Kemp. And I thought, well, you know, they take the IRS agents and stick them in some stairwell or in some manhole cover. You know, watch the flow of sewage down something like that, and that was my expectation. Well, the Secret Service was kind to me. I got to wear, it was raining that day, I got to wear a trench coat. I got to have the earpiece. And I got to be right at the hotel entrance as Jack Kemp came walking, and I was there to watch the crowd, watch their hands, try to protect Jack Kemp, be prepared to take a bullet for him. So I don't know, as far as what IRS agents do, or at least special agents, what they do, but the job was multifaceted. I did mostly money laundering investigations, multi-hundred kilo cocaine smuggling operations. There were agents more experienced than me that did a lot of the preliminary, the investigating part. I was generally brought in to do assist the experienced agents. But then once they retired and moved on, then it was left in my lap. So I really got a lot of good experience in following the money trail. Some high-profile cases. I don't want to mention any names, but there were at least one person that was on America's Most Wanted twice. So I really, these are high-profile, organized crime, very intricate money laundering and drug investigations. I really enjoyed my work very much. I really enjoyed the people that I worked with. When I worked in public accounting, and no offense to accountants because I'm still one, but I used to look at my watch a lot, see when it would be 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or 7. I didn't like my job quite as much as I wanted to. But at least until I heard DV on the radio, I never looked at my watch at the IRS because I really enjoyed the job a lot. It was very exciting. And before I talked to DV, and I'm not blaming DV, I'm just saying before I talked to her, I really thought that what I was doing, although unpopular, at least as the agency was concerned, was a service to the American people. I was using my financial skills to follow the money trail right up to the door of very dangerous people who would murder, intimidate, extort, and otherwise harass anybody that got in their way.
That sounds like IRS.
Well, again, until I talked to DV, those were the targets of my daily work. So I guess now I should probably kind of get into kind of fast forward to the last couple months. I was obviously, my mind frame was rapidly changing, and yet I was still having to go to work every day and feel good about it. And that got harder and harder as time went on. But I had some good advice, because basically once I found out about Bill Benson's evidence, I thought, well, I guess what I have to do now is just run right into my chief's office and tell him. Well, that'll give you an idea about how naive I was. Luckily, somebody helped me put the brakes on a little bit and said, maybe you should look into this just a little deeper, which I did. And I found out that there was a whole bunch of other stuff, and I'm sure I haven't even begun to scratch the surface, but having to do with use of the word voluntary in reams and reams and reams of IRS documents. Things that really raised a lot of questions in my mind, and I'm glad that although not to belittle or make small Bill's stuff, his is kind of the pyramid, but there's a whole bunch of other stuff that I learned about. And another piece of good advice that I got was to write a book, but not in the sense of hey, Monica Lewinsky can do it, why don't you? It was more, people are going to obviously be skeptical of what you found out, and you better cross your T's and dot your I's and make sure that you've got all your thoughts together and you know exactly what you believe and why. And that was very good advice, And it really wasn't that hard for me because that's what I did every day as an IRS criminal investigation special agent. I investigated allegations. And the purpose of that investigation was to recommend prosecution for the offense violated, or recommend that the investigation be discontinued for lack of evidence or some other reason. Well, I was talking to Paymon, and I think as he mentioned, there was a chance, or we were thinking that possibly, just maybe, I'd actually show up at this event and still have my gun and my badge. And I'd only be able to say hello and goodbye. What I mean to say is that there are severe restrictions on a special agent's First Amendment rights. And I don't know how many of those have been challenged, but there were severe restrictions. And being that I'm somebody that likes to obey the law whenever possible, I was very apprehensive about that, about speaking that way. But I still felt very strongly about what I had found out. Well, as fate would have it, or I guess as God would have it, I guess it was meant to be that I'd show up at this event without my gun and my badge. And if I can get the date straight, they weren't that long ago, but on February 8th of 1999, I submitted, the report didn't look like this at the time. It was very, it had the same words that you read in here, but it was basically just a report on 8.5 by 11 white paper, just like the kind of report that I would issue at my job. And I knew that I was going to be putting my superiors in a very awkward position, but I also knew that I was in an awkward position. And I also knew, based on my research, that the American people and the American taxpayers were in a very awkward position. So what I decided is I'd look at the guideposts in my life and in my profession, in my religion, and in the IRS. And I looked at the Ninth Commandment, which tells you that you should not bear false witness against your neighbor. I looked at the oath that I took, as I recounted to you earlier. I also looked at the IRS mission statement, the current one and the previous one, and maybe if I could read that to you. Did somebody steal my IRS mission statement? I put it in this black binder so that many of you have looked at it. Okay, the current IRS mission statement is, quote, provide America's taxpayers top quality service by helping them understand and meet their tax responsibilities and by applying the tax law with integrity and fairness to all. The old mission statement said the purpose of the Internal Revenue Service is to collect the proper amount of tax revenue at the least cost, serve the public by continually improving the quality of our products and services, and perform in a manner warranting the highest degree of public confidence in our integrity, our efficiency, and our fairness. And then I also looked at the mission of the Criminal Investigation Division, and that is, in support of the overall IRS mission, criminal investigation enforces the criminal statutes relative to tax administration and related financial crimes in order to encourage and achieve, directly or indirectly, voluntary compliance with the internal revenue laws. I looked at those various things that I just mentioned to you, and I decided, you know what? I've got to submit this report right on up the chain. Those words that I just read to you and other guidance that I had from the Treasury regulations, from the ethics standards that Bill Benson sent me that applies to U.S. congressmen and I imagine every other public official. I used those as my guideposts to decide whether I was going to do this, and decided that it had to be done. So I gave this report plus a little transmittal letter to my boss. And I said, I know this is going to put you in a really awkward position, but I'd like this report to go to Washington, D.C. And I'd like, the letter basically said, I respectfully request that Commissioner Rosati or his designee commit in writing within 30 days to at least look at my report. I wasn't asking for an answer in 30 days. I was asking for a commitment in writing in 30 days to look at my report. That was February 8th. On February 11th, the report went from my boss to my boss's boss. From February 11th to February 17th, the report went from my boss's boss to 1111 Constitution Avenue in Washington, D.C. I don't know exactly who saw it in between, and I can't even prove who saw it back in Washington, D.C., but I was told that at a minimum, the Assistant Commissioner for Criminal Investigation was aware of my report. I don't think he's around anymore, to tell you the truth. I think he just retired, or I don't think it was related to this, but anyway, so where was I? That was February 17th. Well, February 17th, my boss's boss calls me into the office, or calls me at my desk and says, Joe, how late were you planning on staying tonight? And never gotten a call like that before. So I kind of knew something was up. So I said, well, I plan on being here till 5, 6, whatever it takes. And if I take by your question that you'd like to meet with me, so whatever you'd like, I'll stay as long as I need to. And he said that he was working on some paperwork relating to my issue, and that he had some stuff for me. Well, a couple hours later, got another call, and he asked me to come up to his office. And I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but I kind of had a feeling. I put on my bulletproof vest, yeah. Maybe it's more like put it on for one last time. Anyway, I walked up to his office, and my boss was in there. And they proceeded to tell me that they were in a very awkward position because they had never done anything like this before. And also that what they were about to do was directed to be done. They were relying on, I guess, either their superiors or legal counsel, your tax money at work. Somebody was consulted, and they were doing what they were told to do. And what they were told to do was to issue me a memorandum that was very short. And I'd like to read to you the one paragraph out of it. Many of you may have already read it, so forgive me. And if you remember from my transmittal letter that I submitted with the report, I said, I respectfully request that you commit in writing to review my report. But I also said that if you are not able to address the points in my report, I will be forced to resign because I cannot serve two masters. So the pertinent paragraph says, the Internal Revenue Service will not be responding to your request and will provide you with the necessary paperwork to tender your resignation. You will be placed on administrative leave effective upon receipt of this memorandum for a period of 7 calendar days to consider what actions you wish to take. Well, I'd been looking to take a little vacation time anyway, but I wasn't expecting it quite so soon. But an interesting thing happened, and they kind of looked at me like, maybe this guy is going to back down. And one of the first things out of my mouth, because I was wearing my gun at the time, I always wear my gun. I don't sleep with it, but I had it with me almost all the time for 5.5 years, and I had it on that day. And one of the first things out of my mouth, because I know what administrative leave means, I said, would you like me to turn in my gun right now? And they kind of looked at me like, so you're serious about this, huh, Joe? And I said, I'm dead serious about this. And in my letters, which many of you may have seen, and I'm going to be posting some of them on the internet, I listed out very clearly what my feelings were and why I felt the way I felt. And I was prepared at that moment to give him my gun. And a few minutes later, I did. Bullets, too. So the next thing, and again, you maybe think, I don't want anybody to think that I don't have any hard feelings towards the people that I work with, even the people that I was just talking about, as far as what they had to do. This is my battle until others choose to join me. It's really the battle of the American people, that's right. But anyway, a couple things that they said, because I think they really had they were just trying to help in any way they could. They said, in the leave book, there's a book that we use to sign in and out. And they said, if you like, you can just put leave, which I don't know how many government employees there are, but that basically means vacation or, time off. They said you don't have to put administrative leave, because administrative leave has a very negative connotation. They also said, I said, well, should I clear out my desk? Because I wasn't being fired, and I wasn't, being terminated or asked to resign at that moment. I was being put on administrative leave for 7 days to cool off, to think about it. That had never happened to me before. I wasn't quite sure what to do. But I asked them, should I clear out my desk? And they said, no, you don't have to do that. Well, my mind was racing at about 1,000,000 miles an hour at that point, because I'm thinking, wow, this is really happening very quickly. I didn't save up enough money in my bank account to not have a job, but I've already started down this road. I'm going to keep right on trucking. So I went back to my desk, and I thought, I want to make sure that this doesn't get glossed over or covered up. And not to say that anybody in my office would do that. I don't think they would, but I just wanted to leave a little message without leaving a message. So I cleaned out my desk, and I cleaned off the top of my desk, and I took every snapshot, every award, every NRA sticker. I had this bumper sticker that said, "Fear the government that fears your guns." I had another bumper sticker that said, "The experts agree, gun control works," and there was a picture of Stalin, Gaddafi, Castro, and Hitler. as I'm sure you can, or as I said before, I'm not afraid of being called names. I know what I believe in, and I'm not afraid to defend it. But I took everything down, including my bumper stickers. And also in the leave book, I put down administrative leave in big capital letters. So my desk was clear, and I thought, well, I guess at a minimum, the next morning when everybody comes in, my desk was kind of at a place where everybody would file on past it or see it as they walk in, and usually you walk around and see who's there and say hi, and they'd be looking at my desk and see that it was bare, and then probably the second thing they do is go to the book, see why I wasn't there. So I did get some supportive phone calls the very next day, and I don't want to go into detail about how many there were or who they were, but as I expected, I've got plenty of support. But anyway, I guess I cleaned off my desk, left, and was put on the beach, as we call it, for 7 days with pay. And that would have been that was a Wednesday night. And so I had all day Thursday, all day Friday, and then the full next week, ending with February 26th. Think about it. So you can believe I thought long and hard about it. And during that week, I wrote my resignation letter, and I addressed it to Commissioner Rosati. And I also decided that, I had told Bill Benson that I don't believe in superstition or numbers or anything like that, but I said I thought it was strange that my birthday is on February 25th. And February 25th is the anniversary date of the proclamation of the alleged ratification of the 16th Amendment. And if you look in Bill's book, in the back, there's Philander Knox's proclamation certificate is dated February 25th, 1913, 50 years prior to the day I was born. So during that week, which I say would have ended on February 26th, I had to think, I have to remember the date that I'm going to resign from this agency. February 25th is my birthday. February 25th is that anniversary date. Should I stick around one more day just to get 8 more hours of pay? Or should I save the taxpayers some money? Yeah. Got lots of support. So anyway, I called them up. They were expecting a call, or got in touch with my boss, and I said, I think I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to resign, and I'd like to do it on today, Thursday. So we set it up, and I'd given back my gun, almost a week earlier, but I still had my badge, and I had my computer and all the other, bulletproof vest and handcuffs and, everything you can think of that a federal law enforcement officer would have. I had to part company with. And so I spent quite a few hours on Thursday the 25th giving it all back. And I left that day and haven't gone back. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Paymon, who is a wonderful man and puts most Americans to shame, unfortunately, with his zeal. with his zeal for the Constitution, his zeal for freedom, and I'm very proud to call him my friend. But anyway, I've been working on, well, I've been thinking, well, I guess if I'm not going to have a job anymore, I don't have to worry quite as much about speaking at Paymon's rally. I don't have any taxable income anymore because I'm not working. And no, the question was, have I ever gotten a response? No. The reason that I did what I did was that throughout the 2.5 some odd years of research that I did, I saw this recurring treatment of taxpayers, citizens, however you'd like to call it. Bill Benson getting harassed, prosecuted, jailed, tortured. I saw D.V. Kidd and the civil problems that she had to go through. I saw numerous cases of things that really turned my stomach. And the thing that made me sick was that it appeared that the Internal Revenue Service was ignoring the pleas of not only the people that I had talked to personally, but thousands and probably millions of people who were asking the same questions. And it came to the point where I thought, you know, I'm going to see if they ignore and rebuff a special agent in the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. And they did. They gave me no answer. They gave me my walking papers. So, I'm not angry as much as I am disappointed that that last little glimmer of hope that I was looking for, where they would simply address the concerns of a sworn federal law enforcement officer who was alleging or reporting on very serious constitutional questions about the federal income tax. And they rebuffed me. So here I am. You know, I guess the one disappointment that you may have is that I didn't come here with a silver bullet. In fact, I gave all my bullets back. I don't have. All I have is what the Second Amendment enables me to have. But the only thing I can offer you is that, again, a sworn federal law enforcement officer was turned away when he brought your concerns to the highest levels of the Internal Revenue Service. And well, again, I've met over 200 special agents in the IRS. I've worked with FBI agents, DEA agents, U.S. Customs agents, Secret Service agents, ATF agents, INS agents, Deputy U.S. Marshals. I've worked with all the agencies. And the vast majority of the ones that I came in contact with are good people, and they want to do a good job. But like me, I now believe that they are misguided and uninformed. And as Jack McLam so eloquently states, and I don't want to misquote him, but he says that tyranny will come to your door in a uniform. And his, Jack, I've come to understand that Jack isn't too well liked by the establishment, I guess you'd call it. I like Jack one hell of a lot. I think he's a great American, and I think that if we have a prayer of saving our freedom, then Jack McLam's message is a very important one. How many of you know a police officer or a federal or any kind of a law enforcement officer? That's a lot of people. Look around. I highly recommend that you talk to them as soon as possible and tell them about me and tell them what I went through and what I did, and tell them that I did it without knowing for sure if I'd have anybody standing with me. And I don't mean you nice people, I just mean people in my profession, my accounting profession, law enforcement, my friends, my whole reputation, I stake on this issue and the Constitution. So I would highly recommend that you talk to them right away and you tell them about me. And you ask them to start educating themselves right away. But as far as a silver bullet to offer you, I cannot. The IRS is a very powerful agency. Their special agents all carry guns. And I will continue to say they're good people, but this is another reason why I felt I had to do what I did. Because what I don't want is for people that, maybe rightly so, have kind of a hair trigger because they're a little sick and tired of the treatment. I don't blame them, but I don't want that to happen. And the other thing is, what I'd like to do is read, maybe just to kind of close up, I'd like to read, and some of you may have already read it, but the last paragraph to my resignation letter to Commissioner Rosati, because I think it really highlights what I hope will happen as a result of what I've done. Actually, the last two paragraphs. Based on the obvious futility of continuing to work for an agency that has standards and practices so different from what it professes, and standards and practices so contrary to my own, I am officially resigning from the position of IRS Criminal Investigation Division Special Agent, effective as of the date of this letter. I hope and pray that, as the Commissioner of the Internal Revenue Service, you will see to it that the evidence contained in my report is given a fair and impartial evaluation. The evidence is well known by millions of Americans, and they anxiously await a reply. Every day that you wait is another day that more Americans will come to mistrust you. Every day that you wait is another day that more professional, hardworking, fair-minded, and honorable IRS employees will be placed in harm's way because of that growing mistrust. I implore you to use your position of leadership to resolve these very serious threats to our freedom and our Constitution. Sincerely, Joseph R. Bannister. And one thing I have to say, and I have to be explicit about it, I cannot advocate or encourage people to not file, to not pay, to do all those things that you'd probably love for me to do. I also can't, I don't want to talk about what I'm personally going to do. Because, and I'll tell you why. Obviously, my decision would have a lot of influence. And I just don't feel it's right. And you're just going to have to bear with me because I have to go by my conscience. And I don't believe it's right for whatever part of the American people that hear my message, that they do what I'm doing. There is no silver bullet other than the Constitution and your rights. And that they will wither away and die if you don't learn about them and exercise them.
What are you going to be doing professionally?
Professionally, I let my CPA certificate go at what they call inactive, which just means I don't have to take the CPA exam again, but I have to get some continuing education going again, and then I can get my CPA certificate active. So I plan on going back to what I did before I went in the IRS, which was to be a certified public accountant and be governed by the ethics of that profession. H&R Block. But I do want to say that, again, I don't mean this to be denigrating to IRS employees, but I now believe that the income tax is a form of, or payment of income tax is a form of paying protection money. I'm sure that everyone, I don't need to tell everybody what, am I about out of time?
We're going to wrap it up.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, just educate yourselves, learn from other people's experiences. I don't want to say mistakes because what Bill Benson has done for all of us is astounding. What Congressman Hansen has done for all of us is astounding. I really appreciate what they've done very much, and I love them very much, and they're good people. But anyway, I have a little surprise for you, and it isn't that a bunch of FBI agents are going to come in and arrest you. Bring them on. Okay, anyway, I've got a surprise. It was a surprise to me as of yesterday morning, and I hope he's still here. I don't have my glasses on. Anyway, there is a revenue officer, former revenue officer, who spent 10 years, almost double what I spent in the Criminal Investigation Division. He spent in the Collection Division. He left in, I believe it was April of 1997, based on the same reasons that I left. And we don't have a lot of time, and I apologize to him for having he doesn't have much time to tell you about himself, but I at least wanted to let you know that in case you were thinking that there's only one former IRS agent that has the guts to stand up for what's right, there's really two. And I certainly hope that the 2 becomes 4, and the 4 becomes 8, and the 8 becomes 16, and that's what I'm hoping for. And based on the people that I know in the IRS, I think that's what's going to happen. But, Anyway, I hope you can welcome, I hope he's still here, Mr. John Turner.
This man is the epitome of class. Can you disagree with me that he is a rather unusual blend at the one end of humbleness and softness and sensitivity, and at the other end, truly what a man should be, strength, integrity? Is that not right? And that sure as heck is not to say there's not a whole lot more of them in this country, including several sitting here in this room that are just as much of a real man. Or got that right. And I don't want to embarrass Joe, but you know what? Along with what I just said, in terms of explaining a little more what I mean by him being a man of class, this is unarguably his moment of glory. This is Joe's time, and he deserves the attention and the praise and everything that you have shown him as he's spoken here. And there's a part of me that feels kind of like I really don't want to be here on his stage right now. And yet, ironically, how appropriate for another one to get up here on his heels and say kind of the same thing. And I'm not here right now because of Payman or anybody that's part of the formal group here. I'm here 100% because he has so much class. He asked me if I would do that. A lot of class on Joe's part here. Like he said, I really don't have, we don't have the time for, and it's not the time and the place for me to get into any great detail, just very briefly to confirm that I was listening to Joe just like you, and I was thinking, several times, I was thinking, this is incredible. It's like, in many, many ways, the striking similarities of his story and mine, which, you know, you haven't heard mine, and now's not the time, but take it from me, there's a lot of striking similarities. For one thing, the little journey that I took, real similar. Late 96, listen to talk shows. Even Dee Kid. Not on the Jeff Metcalf show because I'm not a Bay Area guy, but I'm over there near Chico and Sacramento and that area. And I was driving around in my car. I was a field agent, and I was driving around in my car one day. And on KPAY radio, Bruce Sessions, afternoon slot, right-wing conspiracy radio at its best. Here comes D.V. Kidd. And I'd heard of her in more capacities than one, and she's talking about some of the similar things. Well, I didn't, just like Joe, I did not immediately try to contact her or anything, but I got to tell you, I had already been looking at that point. Something was going on in my life. I enjoyed my job. It was a fun job. It was an interesting job. But I got to that point, at this point in my life, that I was thinking, you know, there's got to be some other way that I can make a difference in this country and in my life and not do what I'm doing. But what it is, I have no idea. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is I was looking. You know, the antennas were up. The feelings were, you know, I was all ears and all eyes. I was searching, I was looking. And so I started on my own little journey of investigating and looking. I did not, just the way it worked out, I did not start contacting people in the same way that Joe did. And so it probably was best for me, I'm sitting here thinking about this, I'm thinking for me personally, it was probably best that I arrived at the same exact conclusion as Joe, but I took a little different route. I decided not to go quite as high profile as Joe. I've had my little day when I left in April of '97 of similar situations like this where I spoke to some people. Difference is, it wasn't on the internet and national overnight. And I really salute Joe for having the guts to do that.
Minister, a question. Would you like and would you consider to go to Washington, D.C. with Mr. William Benson and present your book to the IRS or commissioner? I'll pay for your ticket. Let's go, Joe.
Well, the only thing I would say is that I'm a little bit cynical because they just went through a big rigmarole reforming the IRS. And Bill's been talking about this since, what, 1984 and a half, 1985, Bill? Bill sent his book, I believe, to every single member of Congress back then. Instead of sending me back there to take arrows, what you need to do is start talking to your friends, your relatives, your police officers, and you need to start, I know this may sound like, you know, Civics 101, but until you light a fire under the feet of your representative and tell them that they're going to get their rear end kicked out of office unless they do something, they're not going to do anything. There is no silver bullet. You're going to have to take the time. I'm not saying that you personally here, I'm sure you guys are like me. You write letters, you spend way too much time, and there aren't enough people helping you. So you need to tell them about my website, you need to tell them about Paymon's organization, you need to tell them about all these people that are on the back of my book, and you don't have to buy it, just go look at it, go look at the people. Tell your friends about that and say they were credible enough to make an IRS special agent resign from his position.
I'm going to get off the stage here, and I guess the way I'll make my parting comments is just to say on the heels of that, that I've always thought, even when I was working as an agent, and I still believe it now, and this is not a criticism of you or any of the tactics or strategies that you've employed, so don't take it that way. But I really believe that the most effective way to change things is to direct most of the energy at our elected officials, not the IRS employees, because as Joe already told you, and as I have already always told people, the IRS agents, they don't have a clue. Most of them, they just are doing their job with a little bit of training that they got. And for a revenue officer, it was, here you go, boy, here's your commission. Go get them. That's it. So we're talking really to the wrong people for the most part, other than letting them know that, you know, they're on the wrong base with it. Really, we need to talk to Congress. So.
We need a libertarian Congress.
Let's give them a hand, everybody, to both of them, to John and Joe.